I call to order the third meeting of the 55th session of the Commission on the Status of Women. So please be seated. Distinguished delegates, please be seated. I now call to order the third meeting of the 55th session of the Commission on the Status of Women. Excellencies, honorable ministers, distinguished delegates, I extend a very warm welcome to the distinguished ministers as well as to other high-level representatives of governments, United Nations entities and non-governmental organizations who have joined us for this afternoon's high-level roundtable, as well as to those of you who are watching us via webcast. The purpose of this high-level roundtable is to discuss this year's priority theme: access and participation of women and girls in education, training, science and technology, including for the promotion of women's equal access to full employment and decent work. The discussion can also provide input for the Commission's work on the agreed conclusions, which will commence on Friday this week. The issues covered in this year's priority theme have, in different degrees and from particular perspectives and approaches, been part of past intergovernmental discussions and outcomes. The famous the Beijing Platform for Action, adopted in 1995, highlighted the equal access of women and girls to education and employment as part of the global policy framework for women's human rights, gender equality and the empowerment of women. The platform also called on governments and all stakeholders to increase women's access to and retention in science and technology and to help advance opportunities for women in science and technology. How far have we progressed in the implementation of the Beijing Platform for Action? While much progress has been made in the past decades in narrowing gender gaps in relation to the access to basic education, many girls still leave school lacking basic literacy and numerical skills. This points to the need for a greater focus on the quality of education. Women's educational gains have not sufficiently translated into increased and decent employment opportunities. Women and girls continue to be left behind in accessing and participating in science and technology. And the content of research and development does not necessarily reflect the needs of both women and men. I personally learned a lot from Professor Amartya Sen when he espoused the importance for us to broaden our perspective on the status of women to embrace what he calls the important perspective of agency role for women on top of the role of well-being for women. Women are, according to Professor Sen, not passive recipients of welfare-enhancing help brought about by society, but are active promoters and facilitators of social transformations. Such transformations influence the lives and well-being of women, but also those of men and all children, boys as well as girls. This is a momentous enrichment of the reach of our activities. So our discussion this afternoon provides an opportunity to consider policies, programs, and actions that have successfully promoted and ensured the practical realization of the access and participation of women and girls to education, training, science and technology, including for the promotion of women's equal access to full employment and decent work. I encourage you to share your experiences and good practices, and to discuss gaps and challenges as well as ways to address all these issues. I draw your attention to the discussion guide in document E/CN.6/2011/4, which provides further guidance on the interactive discussion. The high-level roundtable will begin with a keynote address, which will be followed by a dialogue among high-level representatives from capitals, a representative from a United Nations entity and a representative from a non-governmental organization will then respond to the discussion and provide the input on the priority theme. In order to promote the interactive nature of the roundtable discussion, interventions from the floor should not exceed 3 minutes. Speakers are encouraged to direct questions and offer comments on interventions made. I would strongly encourage you not to rely on the written statements. Now, being from the land of the culture of punctuality, I will be an honest and a duty-bound timekeeper myself. So, well, with that, it is my pleasure to give the floor to our keynote speaker, Ms. Josefina Vázquez Mota. Mrs. Vázquez Mota is a congresswoman of the Mexican Parliament, acting as the coordinator of the Partido Acción Nacional representatives and leading the political coordination table at Mexican Congress. Ms. Vázquez Mota was the Secretary of Social Development of Mexico between 2000 and 2005, and the Secretary of Public Education of Mexico between 2006 and 2009. Ms. Vázquez Mota, you have the floor.
Muy buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. Let me thank you for having given me this opportunity to share information on this very relevant agenda for the whole world. In the long march throughout the whole world to advance the issues of women, we were followed by the struggle to achieve political advancement and to be able to be in decision-making positions. Today, we are building a full citizenship for all women. As Amalia Sen says, we women are abandoning the role of passive receiving agents of development. We continue to become dynamic and active in social transformations which can change our lives as well as the life of our societies. Our growing participation in education and paid labor doesn't seem to stop, but it still occurs at a disadvantage. We have here representatives of the member states of the Commission, and we're here to exchange experiences, good practices, and development and the challenges. It's a valuable opportunity to think about the courses we followed in order to help achieve success and access of women to education, training, science, and technology in order to expand our opportunities for jobs and achieve economic autonomy. This is a special space to discuss new ways and means to speed up this process. For a very long time, we've said that there is no more important area for justice and prosperity than quality education. It is in schools where this happens. Thus, it is critical in order to have sustainable education based on gender equality and to ensure that we can have freedom. With education, we free ourselves from fears, from ignorance, and to a large extent we get rid of despair. However, we've seen that for many women, education by itself is not a guarantee of access to other resources and opportunities. Education is a key piece of public policies everywhere. However, we must be clear. Public policy will have a substantive impact only if it leads to greater opportunities, well-being, and growth of wealth. Everything seems to indicate that education has no sex, but opportunities do in many of our countries. What happens in schools has not led necessarily to greater opportunities. Educational opportunities for women often are based on stereotypes designed to the task of taking care of others with very little opportunities for education, for leadership, and it places women at a disadvantage in the labor market where more and more an economy of knowledge matters. It's not necessary to enhance the school program. Competitive options are needed, and initiatives which eliminate gender stereotypes will encourage girls and young people to choose sciences and technology among many other fields. We are becoming an increasingly large portion of the workforce, but we have a certain stratified system where we have few opportunities. We have become part of the labor market with salaries and benefits which are way below that of the rest of the population. Today, we are earning 10% less in my country than our men. So we must not only promote legislation that will deal with discrimination and other ills, we have to do away with discrimination on why women are asked, for instance, to provide certificates when they are pregnant. New contracts are needed, labor flexibility to allow working mothers and women who are students who do not have job experience or want to have a flexible employment can get such employment, including the alternatives of IT and communication-based activities. Activities regarding jobs must go hand in hand with measures which will expand access to the right of ownership and financing for women. The poorest among the poor in our country really aspire to having access to credit and to have formalized their patrimony. We would like to see the disappearance of false concepts from our country, such as we shouldn't give it as a given that domestic work is exclusively the job of women, that the care of children and the elderly is not a woman's distinctive responsibility. We must simply look at poverty in the homes. We're ignoring the fact that there are inequalities among the people in a household and that women are at a disadvantage. We must recognize that it is important to see who brings resources to the home, because the ability to earn gives greater power, freedom, and control over our lives. We have this tremendous challenge of building a new institutional architecture which has so far not been carried out. An institutional environment which provides us with dignity and opportunities. Institutions are the support of democratic life and the only guarantee to ensure that the future is viable without reverting to exclusionary and discriminatory practices. So we must have a different attitude in society. Our countries continue to fail to avail themselves of a good portion of our social resources. In accordance with the Mexican Institute on Competitiveness, to enhance participation of women in the workforce would lead to an increase in my country of 1.1% per year of the growth of the PBP and a per capita increase of up to 10%. We must move forward in building legislations to guarantee support platforms and promote public policies that will lead to progress. For instance, we cannot speak of more opportunities of economic and social participation of women if we do not also refer to policies of the economy, high-quality childcare, which will enable mothers to train for jobs, to look for jobs, or work outside the home, to expand the full-time schools, which make it possible to distribute the various burdens, and to ensure that adolescent children are well taken care of and are learning properly, to adjust the schedules of public service opportunities for the needs of the men and women workers who have home responsibilities. For instance, many healthcare entities do not provide services on weekends, and many people in the labor force cannot get medical attention without losing a day of work. Distinguished delegates, the opportunity for dialogue at this session of the Commission on the Status of Women is invaluable to share experiences, achievements, and challenges. Our agendas have stressed the opportunity to halt the kind of violence which occurs where there are accomplices, and I'm referring to aggression against women. We must redouble our commitment to enhance laws to prevent and punish the trade in persons, which is as serious as kidnapping. We have to give economic opportunities to our women citizens and the possibility to ensure that on their own and with greater liberty, we women can also be consumers. We can have economic citizenship and hence a more certain and freer life. Citizenship is not complete without this kind of economic citizenship. Women in the world have never been given anything for free by anyone, and no one has asked us, millions of women who are the women in the family throughout the planet, whether we want or can take care of others, nor have we been asked about our abilities and desire to occupy high positions in the leadership places of policy decisions as well as other issues. Women are called upon when there are agendas which have intensive work, but we're not called upon in the same manner when it comes to decision-making positions that are allocated, that is, leadership power. This is where we must have solidarity. Public policies are needed and a much clearer and bolder agenda. We women have demonstrated time and again, every day and many times a day, our sense of responsibility and commitment. I'm certain that we are ready for the new roles needed by the world of the 21st century today. And in conclusion, it's often the case that we women, when we're in leadership roles, are asked whether we're able, do we have the courage to take decisions? Do we know the solution of the problems of our countries? Are we trained to vote? Do we know how to vote or be voted for? The time has come for such questions to cease being part of the lives of women in the country. It's time for us to be acknowledged every day in all the positions, all the leadership roles which we have and which we do tirelessly. I hope that through your voices we can hear the voices of millions of women whose political and economic citizenship is still not fully implemented in the world of democracy and in the world at large. I thank you very much.